Okay, this is Mr. Marr. I'm getting ready for the Soundtrap tutorial. This is using the samples that we recorded the other day using Twisted Wave. So you can see right now I'm at Soundtrap. I'm going to be logging in the login screen. Just using my school email account. If it asked you to pick either educational or personal use, you're going to click personal use. If you're doing educational use, it requires a code that we do not have. Alright, so once I get to Soundtrap, I'm going to go into the studio. When the window comes up, you're going to select the blank template. And now Soundtrap is set, and we're going to step away for a second so we can set up our workspace and make sure that everything gets imported and set up properly. So you're going to go to your Google Drive, so it's google.com/drive. You can log in with your school account, and you're going to download that sample folder that you created the other day. I called mine samples. So it's going to zip the files together, which compresses them into one folder. In order to get to your files, you do need to unzip the file. So that just takes one click, usually, and that opens it up. Good. So those are my 3 samples that I recorded in different classes. Once you have your sample folder, you can start looking for other samples. Some of you have actually been adding in your own melodic loops. I know at least some of you have found websites where you can learn more about piano chords, or you have some other way of adding loops, and if that is the case, you may skip this part. But you go to, this is my loop folder. This is all loops that are made from the Do Now. So that was a loop from beat number 10 from section 2. You can listen to the full beat together or just pieces, just each individual layer. So either full or one layer at a time. I'm going to click around and I'm just going to see if there's a loop that I like. Some of these have a loop 1 and a loop 2. I'm going to check out loop 2. So I really like those loop 2 sounds, so I'm going to download that folder. Works the same, have to zip the files together, save, and it will show up in your download folder. Then unzip the file. Alright, so now we can just check, make sure that everything works. Great. Alright. So now we're going to start setting up our drum loops. So I'm going to click back and get to Beat Theory Loop Pack Volume 1 and go to Drum Loops. So each of these folders contains some individual one-shot samples of drums, also loops. The titles are also all spoonerisms, which is where you take 2 words and you switch the first letter. Doesn't have anything to do with music, but it's kind of fun. And if you'll notice, on all of my loops at the end, there's a BPM, and we are going to need to take note of that later. BPM is beats per minute, and that tells you how fast something is. All right. So I'm going to try the whole Faust loops. And I think that's what I'm going for right now. So I'm going to click that folder, go up to the 3 dots in the right corner, and download. And again, zips the files together, so you are going to need to unzip the zip file to get to the actual audio file loops. I always just double check my loops to make sure everything came through correctly, so I don't have to go back and redo anything. Great, so now we're on to the making your loop section of the stepper sheet. It does say to click the gray bar above your sample, but if you don't have anything in there, it's not going to work. So I did just click the activate loop mode that does the same thing. We really just need to make sure that the loop mode is on. So I'm setting that back. That purple little triangle square that I just moved, that indicates where you are in the pattern. So I'm going to start by adding in the samples that I made myself. Great. So now we see that gray bar at the top, and I'm going to click that to activate it. You can see loop mode is activated now. And I'm going to shrink that down to make a 2-bar loop. And I'm going to try to drag these out, but here's the thing. It's only going to move if you click the black part or the sound wave part of the icon. If you click just where the color is, it's not going to work. You have to click where it is black on the sample. So I'm listening to my loop here. See if I can come up with some new ideas. I'm going to copy and paste by clicking up at the top sample that I want to paste from. If you try to do it another way, you're going to get an error, but it always pastes from the top down. So you can see I'm still trying to move that, but it's not working because I'm not clicking the black part of the sample. I'm going to move that over. For this case, I would avoid layering any sounds on top of each other with the samples. They should all be kind of one at a time. So right there, I got to move that because I don't want any samples happening at the same time. I won't really be able to hear. Now I have a pattern that I like. There's a little bit of variation, not too much variation. You can see that that did not work because I didn't click the top track that I wanted to paste from. There we go. So each time I'm just going to make sure it's pasting right on the bar line. So I'm clicking the number that I want to paste from. So I just drag that loop bar out so it reaches 9, and now I've created an 8-bar loop. All right, so we're going to need to add in some other sounds now. And you can see the BPM in this sample pack is 72. Before I can add any loops in, I need to change the BPM. If you don't, it's not going to line up and it's going to sound pretty bad. Usually if it asks you to adjust, you say yes. In this case, I said no. It's more important that it adjusts once my loops are in. So I'm going to put in just a couple layers of this. I'm not going to put in the full loop, just in case I want to take a loop out or create a more interesting arrangement where layers come in and out of the pattern. So I have an 808, I've got a couple reverse sounds, and then this little ARP here. Let's take a listen. Cool. All right. So I'm going to head back, and now we're going to add in our drum loops. So the drum loops are actually at a different tempo. You can see these are at 98. So we're going to change our tempo to 98 BPM. It's asking to adjust. I would say yes, you do need to adjust the samples at this time. This way everything stays in time with the BPM. Great. So it sounds a little different, a little faster. Let's drop those drums in there. So I'm adding, looks like an open hi-hat, closed hi-hat, kick, snare. I usually put the kick on top and the kick on the bottom and the snare on top, but I did not in this case. It's helpful that the all of your patterns are color-coded automatically. It just helps to keep things organized. So since the sample loops are 8 bars and the drum loops are 4, I have to copy and paste those as well, so it stretches out the full pattern. Okay, so I kind of like that, but we're gonna have to make some adjustments. Change the volume a little bit, bring up the drums a little bit more using those volume knobs. Now I'm going to solo different samples and see if I can edit them. At this point, if you're done, you can save it and turn it in. This is just kind of the extra little bit to get it sounding a little bit cooler. So I added some distortion to change the tone a little bit, make it a little gritty. I'm adding something called a delay, which adds a little echo. And the time controls how fast the echo is. The mix is how loud the echo is. And something called room. So room is like imagining if you take your sound and you put it in like a big echoey room, like a church or like an empty cafeteria. That's kind of what the room is. So I'm changing a couple things on the amp just to get the tone that I want, changing the volume. So I'm now soloing out the second sample. And we're going to make some edits to that. So I really like that distortion. I think it's really nice. Good sound. Makes it really interesting. Whenever you record a live sound and you mix it with digital sounds, it really helps to process that digital sound in some way. So adding some kind of effect on it, and that's why it fits a little better. And that's actually why rappers and singers use auto-tune a lot, because it actually does help the vocals fit with the electronic sounds better. So I added some distortion and a delay, and I think I'm good on that. I think that's all it needs. So I'm going to solo out the next sample, and just listening to all the samples together just to get a good sense of this. I'm going to try something a little different. So I've got this phaser, which is going to sound really different depending on what kind of sample you use, but it just creates some variation around the sound. It's this wobbly kind of noise. But in our case, it's just going to make it sound a little bit different every time it plays. So I'm adding another delay, and this time I'm putting distortion on at the end. So it does actually matter what order you put your effects in. There should be some way to move them around, but even if there isn't, it still does matter what order you put them in. It's going to change the sound. Just a little bit. You might not even notice the difference, but it does matter. So I just put my 808 on. I'm going to turn that up a little bit. And I don't think this is really what I want for that 808 pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slow that tempo way back down and see if I can get to a speed that fits a little bit better with that 808. So I'm going to change it back to 86, so it's kind of in between 98 and 72, and I just like 86 as a tempo. I think it's a tempo, it's got some energy, but it's still like a little laid back. So you have to wait so it can make these changes and edits. Just processing. So then we're going to hear what it sounds like now, everything at the new tempo. Okay, I think that helps. I think that really makes a difference. I like that new tempo. So now I'm adding in my reverse sounds, make some edits there. The 808s are pretty processed already, so I don't really want to add too much to that. Usually you don't add reverb to 808s either, but I'm going to add some church reverb onto my reverse sounds, make it really nice and big and echoey. And I got this ARP here, so I'm going to add some effects to that. So I'm going to add a flanger, and that's going to kind of make the sound move around between left and right. So if you're doing this with headphones, you might start to hear how that spins around a little bit. So we've got the open hi-hat. Actually, turn that down a little bit. Let's add in the closed hi-hat, turn that up. Got my kick. Kick needs a little bit more. I'm going to add some distortion onto my kick. Get it hit a little harder. Also, compression. So with the compression, mostly just mess with that threshold knob that I'm moving right now. What it does is it takes the sound and it squashes it down, so it the softs aren't as soft, and it's just easier to make the sound a little bit bigger. So I'm adding also some distortion onto my final loop here, doing the compression. Compressors are also used to kind of glue sounds together. Like if you want to do different sounds to blend, a lot of times you use a compressor and it kind of evens things out. So now this is the whole pattern. Everything is all together. Let's just give that a listen real quick. Or no, we won't. We're gonna save it first, because saving is a smart idea. And we're going to export to MP3. Right now it's mixing on their server, so you got to wait. So you see that little thing up there I just put my mouse on, it says mixing with the, yeah. You got to wait for that to be done, and then once that's done, you can export your file and upload it to your Google Drive, turn it into me. And I appreciate you guys listening through my tutorial, and hopefully that helps you guys complete your project. Thank you.